Welcome to Behind the Scenes at ID8 Studios. I'm Steve Sue. This is Chris Labaki. This is the place where you can learn about the art of producing art. And our guest today is Erick Melanson, filmmaker extraordinaire.
Hello.
How's it, buddy?
Doing good.
Thanks for joining us. And you're going to tell us a little bit about how to make a documentary that tells a personal story.
Yeah.
So you've made a doc.
I have.
Tell us a little bit about your doc.
So the my kind of calling card doc, I guess, was in my last semester at UH in the film program, and it's about the hardcore punk scene here in Hawaii.
Okay.
And yeah, so that was just something that I'd always been kind of passionate about, music and, you know, that kind of scene and stuff. I'd played in bands in high school and things like that, and it just felt like a natural sort of, you know, lane to document. And
Are you born and raised in Hawaii?
I'm from Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. So when
Yeah.
did you come to Hawaii?
When I was 19.
Okay, so you've
Yeah.
been punking here for a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute
Oh,
now.
you've been a punk for a while.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. So what is the punk scene like here?
It's you know, surprisingly healthy and ever evolving. It's that doc that I made on that was from maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. But yeah, it's gone through a lot of changes, a lot of new bands, a lot of new people, and yeah.
So can you define the punk genre for us?
It's sort of tough to really, I think, put a hard, you know, descriptor or labels on what it really is. But I think mostly like an attitude and like a certain, when I think of punk or hardcore, I think of a community more than necessarily like exact genre tropes or what a guitar is going to sound like or things like that, but just sort of a, you know, idea. And yeah, I think community is where I like to point to for, you know,
So is
the
it
defining
like
factor.
punk as the formal art or genre of punk, or is there like fusion with indigenous Hawaiian music?
Yeah, I think that's something really special about the scene here is because it's so small and condensed, you know, there's only going to be so many bands, and, you know, all those bands are coming from, you know, all sorts of different people moving here from different backgrounds, different music and stuff. And each show is going to have, you know, if it has 5 bands, they're going to be 5 very different bands. I think that's really cool and different than some other places, but yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So you did a documentary on punk bands or
Yeah.
the genre, or
The
tell us
scene,
about it.
the scene here specifically. So I started with a friend of mine who's the main subject, and he books shows and, you know, kind of has toured with bands and things like that. And I was like, you know, basically just, all right, I got an interesting friend here. Let's, you know, explore. And so it was a lot of fun to just sort of, you know, get closer with him and learn about, you know, how the scene here has evolved over the years and different phases it's gone through. You know, there's some times where it's, you know, kind of booming and there's a lot of bands. And, you know, say around 2019 when I shot that one, it was, you know, we were kind of coming into a time where there was a lot more bands and a lot more attendance at shows and involvement in that way and stuff. And then COVID happened. And that was like, it was like, whoa, okay, so that's totally like irrelevant and over now. And then it felt like kind of a cool time capsule to have, where I was like, oh, cool, we kind of like, you know, documented what this is. And yeah, even since COVID has ended, it feels very different. And there's like, you know, a lot of younger kids and stuff. And I think a lot of people kind of aged out and new people have aged in. And yeah, musically very different at this point, where it's almost like, you know, like I'm saying, there's not so much a sound, but an idea and kind of just like a, you know, like a attitude of, you know, activism or, you know, things like that. That's kind of much more present than a solid sound.
How do you find the personal story in these documentaries that you make?
Yeah, so for me, like I said, it's kind of, with this project, I just worked from, you know, something I know, something I'm passionate about. So music and playing in, you know, an underground scene like that is, you know, it's not something that everybody's very familiar with. And yeah, so I just kind of approached friends and kind of went at it at the, like, you know, most kind of small, like, one-on-one level that I could, for the most part. Like I said, this was a school project, and I think we were assigned like groups and stuff, but I really kind of took it upon myself to just okay, I'm gonna like bring my own camera, like small setup, minimal kind of, footprint, and just hang out, And yeah, like I said, to start the whole process with friends too is kind of like you're kind of skipping over the step of like really trying to break somebody's walls down and stuff. And I guess I became much closer friends with all the people from this project throughout, which was really cool too. But to have a starting point and have a similar, a common denominator, and that sort of thing.
So is your project like a slice of life of this underground culture, or is it?
I think so. Yeah, it was. I shot it around the time when there was like a band touring that was kind of, pumping some life into the local scene, and a band was coming out here, so all the bands here were kind of like, playing more shows and, just gearing up for this big thing, and it was, everybody was kind of coming out and stuff, and it was very like, generally, people talking about what the scene is like here, but it was very specific to, a couple weeks really that I was going to shows. And
so how do you find the drama? Like, I mean, obviously COVID was huge drama.
Yeah.
Booking is huge drama. But for your storyline, what was the drama is there an arc in it? Or?
Yeah, I guess sort of the conflict that we were addressing in that was, what it takes to facilitate, a community and keep people coming out, keep people interested. And, yeah, because, it's nothing dire, nobody's going to, nothing crazy is going to happen if there's not shows or anything, but it's, just a challenge to, keep your friends around and keep, stuff like that.
Well, but as an artist, it is dire because if you can't sing, then you're not living, right?
Right.
And
yeah.
COVID was,
no, for sure.
They didn't
yeah.
let people sing in public.
Very true. Yeah. And so, I really wanted to do more with this project eventually. Right before COVID, I kind of was like, reaching out to other folks who'd lived here, moved away, kind of gone on to bigger things and stuff like that, and kind of never came about. But yeah, it was that there is definitely an angle there where it's sort of, maybe that'd be a good chapter 2 is the COVID struggle, and just all of us having to record at home and stuff.
You're right.
Play on Instagram Live.
Yeah. So what was your crew setup for this picture? Because obviously in COVID, limited, whatever, but also I kind of want to get an idea of how did you shoot this? Did you buy a camera yourself and self-shoot it, or did you have a
I used my personal camera. It was like a T3i or something. I think I rented some lenses from school because that was something that I could have for like a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Because I was like, if I rent a camera from school, I have it for a day or two, and I was like, that's too tight. It's too loose. I wanted to be able to be looser and be able to kind of like, okay, there's like a show this day, there's a show this day, I can interview this person this day, and it was very much, I just wanted to be able to be fluid.
So what's the length of your product, and how long were you in production?
I think it's maybe 7 or 8 minutes. I was shooting it for probably about a month or two, kind of just days here and there, and the crew-wise, it was pretty much just me. I had a couple friends come through a couple times just to make sure that everything's recording while I'm doing an interview or whatever. But it was a really minimal setup, just kind of small cameras at shows, and just that was a lot of fun. I like filming shows. That was a big part of it for me too. And I think part of that personal thing is just doing something, working on a project on a subject that you're passionate about, and that really you connect with, because it becomes really apparent really quickly when somebody's a tourist in, a subject that they're trying to work on. And ultimately, you're never gonna have as good a product when you're, not invested in something.
Yeah.
And you can do it, and you can do something that somebody's gonna like, but I think you can always feel when something's more genuine and,
Sure.
Do you have any tips on how to keep it personal when you're making these documentaries?
I think for me, it was just trying to meet these people where they're at, you know what I mean? The subjects and interviews, and kind of building bonds outside of the filmmaking, and just sort of like not just showing up and like on a mission, like, all right, sit down, let's get these lights on, but just like, all right, let's go grab some food first. And like, let's go, I'm not filming tonight, but let's go to this show. You know what I mean? And kind of just immersing, and just kind of making it like a friends first kind of thing. And because I definitely feel like there's an angle of, you know, the sort of thing that can be advantageous if you're just sort of, like I said, showing up as like a tourist in this community.
Were you already immersed in this community, or this
a little
was this
bit,
new for you?
A little bit. Handful of friends, and I'd just been kind of going to shows and stuff, but I was just like shy and quiet and stuff, so I was kind of doing my own thing. But yeah, eventually I just reached out to one of my friends who plays in bands, and I was like, hey, like I kind of want to like explore this, and he was like, okay, cool, yeah, like you should talk to this guy, and stuff like that.
Well, that's kind of cool. And actually, with your minimal setup, you're pretty innocuous. Like, people are so used to cameras being around, so you can get like the authentic, natural thing, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you this: you go to shows, and I got to think the camera setups and everything are so unique because it's low light, it's flashing light. How do you even do the audio?
I was just using like Rode mics, just on the camera, just a shotgun mic, and yeah, honestly, some of the setups were like a little, you know, could have had much better setups for lighting and stuff. But I think that was also part of it, and part of what you know, those look like when you see a concert video on YouTube or whatever, whether it's, you know, from the 90s.
Because the expectation is so high. Everybody sees music, right? And like, well, that's tight. And then they see your piece and it's like, well, that's a documentary.
Right, yeah. It's just like sort of raw. And it's like, yes, that's what it looks like to be in that environment.
So do you try to push it to the raw side just to be different?
I guess in a way I feel like in my everything I create, I sort of lean that direction. And I think it's like, you know, when you kind of say you like make a mistake on set, or, you know, there's a weird light and you kind of are like, oh, well, that's actually to represent like, you know, this sort of thing with the character. And it's like, I feel like that's a lot of the way I create is just like, all right, what do I have? What can I do?
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
Like the key is everything has to look like it's on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Nice
embracing it. Yeah. Embracing the grain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Embrace the grain.
Yeah.
That's a filter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I meant it that way.
Yeah. Somebody's going to add it in post. I'll just get it on the first
So
place.
you're doing a picture on music. How do you do the sound design?
On this one specifically, I probably could have done a lot more on sound design. I basically took songs from each of the bands, and then I was either, you know, just playing that under the interviews or lining it up over their footage of like playing the same songs live. I didn't use a ton of that live audio for that stuff. But yeah, I do just also have those like sets just like raw up on my YouTube, and that was stuff that I really liked. That's what kind of got me into like filmmaking in the first place, was like playing in bands and being like, well, I want to document this for myself. Like, I think this is super cool that I'm playing this show, and this is, you know, how many times does this happen, you know, kind of thing. Like, your bands just break up, whatever, people move away, people, you know, go to college or whatever, and it's like, yeah, it just feels good to sort of grab it.
That's cool. Yeah, actually, I'm thinking about this in terms of, if you look at a lot of music videos, they're in a way almost like documentaries, because they have a track and they've got a lot of B-roll,
right?
And they just shoot like 3 or 4 different setups for B-roll and just intercut them.
Yeah, totally.
But that actually covers for you in this context, right?
Yeah, totally.
So is that sort of your process, how you approached it, or is?
Yeah, I kind of went at it, and yeah, it was a very simple, you know, setup. I could have done a much more kind of like process footage and things like that. If I were to do it again, I definitely would do more kind of like, not necessarily just talking head interview stuff, but just, you know, lifestyle kind of footage and things like that. I think that goes a long way in these things too. But yeah, I was kind of just grabbing whatever footage at shows and did the interviews, and yeah.
Nice.
It's funny too, now that I look at it, I'm like, I'm still very proud of it. But like I said, that's maybe 2-3 years ago, however long it's been. And it's like, I like what I did, but I'm also like, I would maybe not do it super different, but I would definitely approach it very differently now. And I would be much more aware of a lot of things and stuff like that. And
that's how you know you're an artist.
Yeah.
You're just going to keep doing it. Right? Because every time in your life, you're going to be like, I could have done that better.
Yeah, totally.
I could have said that better in an interview. I could have shot that better in a camera. I could have played that piece of music better.
Right.
But that's good. Evolve.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the most important thing was just being stoked on it, and you know, approaching it from a place of not trying to be like, okay, I want to make a film here, but like, I want to document what is happening here, and I want to be able to give this to these people, and knowing what I like for that sort of thing. Yeah, it was really, I remember the day after I posted it, on YouTube or whatever, I went to a barbecue at the main subject in it, his house. And so a lot of other people who like played in bands and stuff were there, and they were all like, whoa, like you made that, like that, thank you so much, like that was sick. Like it was just, and I was like, oh shoot, yeah, like you guys want to watch it, like that's cool. Like that's obviously my plan, was to make something that, you know, you folks wanted to see and, you know, could see yourself in and, you know, show years from now. And I was like, oh, it was very rewarding to just like, you know, see people stoked on it and be able to follow up that way too, where, you know, I've had these friends for years now. I was at one of their weddings the other day, and it was like, it was nice. And just, yeah, I think that's just important, is to, you know, approach it as if you're going to go beyond what just the project is.
You just gave me chicken skin, because when you said people thank you for doing it, that's like, that lights
was
my
very
fire.
cool.
Every time we do
Yeah.
these things, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's true.
When people thank you for doing
Yeah.
it, that's when you know you succeeded it. Ladies and gentlemen, Erick Melanson, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
So how do people find out about you and your projects?
Let's see. My Instagram is just my name, ErickMelanson, and usually I'll post stuff on there when I finish stuff, and my stories at least or whatever. And I have a couple podcasts. Nobody is listening to this music podcast, and nobody is listening to this movie podcast.
Nice. I'm going to listen to it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Erick. Thanks for joining us. And for more on this broadcast and ID8 Studios, id8studios.org, and on social, id8.studios. Thanks for joining us.